if you're just joining us or if you're just catching in, I'm Nancy Sheet of Sheet Communications. I love working with writers and authors, so I'm thrilled to be here with two co-authors, Alex Jamieson and Bob Gower, and we're talking about how they took their self-published book to traditional publishing. But if you look, I was about to literally say how to get the right publishing deal for your book, right? And so I had all these questions of like, what questions did you ask of your traditional publisher? So were there some, I mean, it sounds like you went through that checklist in your head, right? Like branded, we're not going to have to do a lot of work. You already had the platform and you were in alignment with your content. Was there anything else like when you made that decision?
Two things came up. One was a good thing we did, and one was a mistake we made.
Okay.
We did have a lawyer look at the contract for us. Like we didn't have an agent. We decided not to bring my agent in. So it's like, it's a really standard deal. Like there's nothing to negotiate. Let's go for it. We had a lawyer look at it who was experienced. Like, you know, he had been a literary agent himself, so he could look at it and walk us through that easily.
Yeah.
Right.
But one thing we did learn was that when the book was coming out, we were like, oh, we want the audiobook rights for this. Like we want to put this out because the market for audiobooks has changed so much since my last book came out.
Such a good point.
That, you know, there's actually a lot of opportunity to make long-term profit from the audiobook. So we ended up buying the rights back and recorded it ourselves right here. And
during COVID lockdown. Yeah. Yeah. Actually the book, so yeah. And I think it's even another point is that we realized that the contract actually did not stipulate that an audiobook would be produced. In other words, they had the rights. And they had the right to sell the rights, but they had no obligation to make the audiobook. And that was a complete miss for us during the negotiation phase. We just assumed, you know, which you should never do, obviously. And so, and then as we were looking at the economics of the, you know, like they were putting the audio rights out to auction at actually the London book show.
London Book Fair.
Yeah. Like right when COVID hit, like I think it actually got canceled because of COVID or something. Like it was really like right in March when it was all sort of going down. And so we found out what they were, you know, what it was going to bring in auction. We're like, well, we'll pay that. Like we can make that back.
Right.
You know, with some Audible bounties along with some, you know, modest sales, we'll make back the investment very, very quickly. And so it becomes now it becomes actually a product line for us. It becomes something that's kind of interesting for us to make some money off of. Yeah.
I was going to say, and you're already set up in your studio. And I think, again, that brings a whole nother level. A, it's your own book, but two, the two different voices, because I know at the very beginning of this project, you were both concerned about, yes, this was your co-project, but you as yourselves are two different brands and you yourselves are two different personalities and you yourselves are known for two different. So I think what a wonderful way to bring this book literally to life, right? In terms of being able to hear you talk about it. So I bet you've gotten, I would assume, fantastic responses from the, you know, there's some books that just lend themselves naturally. And I could see this being one of them.
Yeah, I actually read my last book. I did the reading for the Simon & Schuster book I did. And Bob is, I don't know if you can tell, but he has an incredibly rich voice.
Well,
he did acting training. So it's like, we can do this. Let's just
totally.
Because I prefer it when the author reads the book.
Totally.
Unless there's some crazy vocal thing going on you can't listen to for very long.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it was a nice way to personalize it.
Yeah. I just listened to a book where the author or the person reading it didn't understand the topic at all. And so he's like spelling out acronyms that are always spoken as words, like
right.
EBITDA, you know, and like then the business IDEO, you know, the design bit, he spelled IDEO, the design, you know, and I was just like, this is so this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Naughty. The publisher let that one go out. That's
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I need to review it on Amazon.
I wanted to say one other thing about going from the self-published skinny version to the bulked up version. one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, because at first I was like, no, let's make it a 90-minute read. And then we had an opportunity to really flesh it out. We had so many more stories to share about people who had used the method now to plan weddings or to like change their family communication or on their teams at work. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have to include these stories. Yeah. They're incredible. And one of the things we included in the new book, which people love and all the reviews love it, is there's all these scripts now in the book about how to use the method. And people love that.
Yes. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because having seen it in its first version, and one of the big sort of cruxes or struggles when we were talking about it was the bringing the business and the personal together, right? Like in your head, you'd seen it work, but in the book, it was still had more of that manual feel, and it would feel like it would go back and forth between those examples. And it was a little, you know, we can say it now because it's all out and different, but it's a little bit stark, right? So I think that totally, I was so excited with the new version, to see that, because it did a wonderful job of smoothing the transitions in your examples as well, right? Does that make sense in terms of, it didn't seem like this is personal, this is work. It just kind of, you did a great job of integrating the situation into the point you were trying to make.
Yeah, I mean that you're speaking to the essential struggle of this book, which it was just kind of two different ones. One was blending our voices,
right?
Because we both work, you know, like I'll coach, you know, I coach individual executives. Alex, you know, coaches, you know, women who are, you know, in their work environment and has gone into businesses as well. So we don't, you know, it's not like Alex is personal and I'm business. It's like we're both kind of a little bit in each other's worlds, but mostly in one world or the other. And then we both have our own writing style. We both have our own, you know, way we use vocabulary. We both have our own, you know, and so kind of blending all of that and positioning the book was really, you know, as you know, right? Because you helped us work through this, right?
No,
you position it as self-help or you position it as business, and they're radically different positions, right? So.
Well, exactly. And I think, you know, but when I was thinking about introducing you both, I think you all tend to break the rules and do things a little bit differently or ask a question. And so you literally did that in the way you approached your book and the way you covered the content, and as well as the way you ended up with the traditional book deal. You didn't go the traditional route. So to me, the whole process was totally on brand for the way you approach most of the stuff you do as well.